Jason Davis here on Lower League America on Compass Football, joined by Nipun Chopra. Nipun, it's time to get this started to take a look at lower league soccer in the United States of America. Of course, we're brought to you by Sock Takes, Nipun's excellent website covering the lower divisions in the U.S. How are you, Nipun?
I'm great, Jason. Great to be talking to you. Always a pleasure, and always a pleasure to talk about the lower divisions of American soccer.
Completely undercovered. Let me use that proper word here. Undercovered lower divisions of American soccer. That's why we're here. Now, we thought for this first program, Nipun, that we would sort of do an overview. I mean, there are certainly things happening in the moment. And for those people that are initiated already in lower division soccer in the United States, this is going to be old news. But it's important to kind of lay out the framework of what we've got going on here with all of the myriad leagues, competition for markets and cities and new clubs happening all the time. Some clubs having to go on hiatus or shut down. So let's kind of break down the American pyramid as it exists, such as it is. Where do you want to start?
Let's start right at the top, Jason. Let's start right at the top with MLS. We'll do a very brief survey of MLS, and this is something that you cover brilliantly on SiriusXM. Essentially, MLS is the top dogs, Division One. As things stand, they've succeeded where other leagues in American soccer have failed. They have been in existence for 20 odd years, or almost 20 years, I guess 19 years. No, it's longer than that.
No, we're actually in, I think we're in year 23 of Major League Soccer.
That's right. 99 was the year when things started to change for MLS, though. We're sort of in the situation where MLS has gone from strength to strength. They are a successful first division. They have players like Bastian Schweinsteiger, Ibrahimovic, Wayne Rooney scoring lots of goals for DC United. The clubs are doing well. The clubs have a valuation of believed to be 150 million is the franchise fee. So by most metrics, MLS is succeeding.
A walled-off top division.
Yes.
Of course, that's something that most people who follow American soccer will know. We're not talking about any integration between these divisions. So MLS, with 23 teams at the moment, expanding still. You said the $150 million valuations. That's partly based on the $150 million expansion fee that Major League Soccer is currently asking for of its new franchises, which there will be a couple coming into the league in the near future.
Exactly. Both of them coming from lower division soccer, FC Cincinnati and Nashville. Speaking of lower division soccer, once we get past MLS, Jason, we get to second division. From 2010 to 2016, the second division was occupied by the North American Soccer League. In 2016 and 2017, it was occupied by both North American Soccer League and United Soccer League. And in 2018, currently, the United Soccer League, USL, are the sole occupants of Division II of American soccer.
We can't really dive into why that is the case necessarily. It's a little complicated, but the short and sweet way to say it is that the NASL, the 2.0 version, of course, the newer NASL that was the second division and then shared that division with USL, is currently on hiatus, in part because they lost so many teams to expansion for MLS and USL. It made it impossible for them to meet the U.S. soccer standards, and now they're in court challenging those standards.
Yeah, that's a good summary, and I'll throw in some poor business decisions as well contributed to that decline, along with the exodus of important teams such as the Rowdies, Indianapolis, Indy 11, Strikers going on a hiatus, etc.
Right. Stay tuned for your initiation into antitrust law in America via soccer at some point in the future. Not right now.
It's going to happen for sure. It's inescapable, right, Jason? The lawsuit stuff just goes on and on and on. And lawyers are making a lot of money from soccer.
In many different ways, yes.
Exactly. United Soccer League, USL, is also a successful model, especially when you compare it to how things operated with NASL. Their current expansion fee is $7 million. It was updated this year. They have over 30 teams. They announced 8 teams for expansion for 2018. They already have 2 or 3 markets, strong markets, such as Chicago and San Francisco, specifically Oakland, California, basically guaranteed for future years, and they're already working up expansion for 2020, 2021. So a very strong league, successful, stable.
USL. Now, USL is also expanding into the division they formerly occupied, which is Division 3. That division, when USL moved up to Division 2, left unoccupied. They're not the only ones, and we'll come to that, but let's talk about USL's attempt to fill the Division 3 void.
Yes, so USL D3, as they're called right now, although they're going to rebrand after, I believe, by the end of this year, both the second division and the third division. USL D3 has applied for divisional sanctioning from the USSF, the United States Soccer Federation, which hands out these divisional sanctions. They've currently applied with 10 teams, is what we learned. We know the identity of 6 teams, and we've been guessing the identity of the remaining 4. Meanwhile, they've also announced that the Rochester Rhinos, a historic U.S. American soccer team, will relaunch. They've been on hiatus, will relaunch as a Division 3 team in 2020.
Let's be sure that we're also saying here, with a lot of these plans, that they are plans. And
correct.
While USL has followed through on many of their expansion teams, especially in the second division level, and therefore we don't have a lot of reason to doubt that they'll figure this out in the third division, there's a chance that some of this won't come to fruition. I say that specifically about the Rhinos a little bit, Nipun,
Right.
if only because there has been so much trouble in Rochester in recent years, and they're vacating the purpose-built stadium that they formerly occupied when they were one of the strongest teams in the second division in this country.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think skepticism of these announcements and this brilliant PR from USL and the other leagues, to be honest, is warranted. Because if we're not asking the right questions, I think we end up in a situation like happened with NASL, where everyone just pretended the problems didn't exist. So I totally agree with you. I think a lot of these are plans. There's a lot that needs to happen in order for these plans to be executed, which includes, as you said, hopefully the stability of Rochester Rhinos going forward. But everything is unclear, including exactly how the stadium lease will be set up, exactly how the financial, whether the Dworkins will still be invested in the team. There are a lot of open-ended questions about the Rhinos, and a lot of open-ended questions about USL D3 as well.
Yes, and some questions in Chattanooga, which is another complication to our show here that we don't have a lot of time to dive into, but needless to say, USL starting a D3 team in Chattanooga is causing a bit of an uproar because there's an NPSL team that already exists there and is relatively successful, especially by that division standards, or that league standards, and we'll come to that perhaps either today or on another program. Greenville also announced for USL D3, John Harkes going to be the first ever head coach for that team, a story that you had, Nipun, that was confirmed as of today via when we're recording this show. So we know that John Harkes will be leading the charge there in Greenville, South Carolina. Good stuff for them. Certainly moving into a launch here with a solid figure from American soccer's past.
Absolutely. I mean, if you, everyone I talked to when I reported the story was very excited about the fact that John Harkes was taking over. Here you have a U.S. men's national team legend, a person that is well regarded, especially in terms of his playing career, even his coaching career. His first season at FC Cincinnati was remarkable. He had a very strong start to his coaching career. The second season fell apart, and that, again, we can talk why that happened, but the truth is that he did well at FC Cincinnati, and people kind of forget that. So for Greenville, a brand new team, to be able to get a manager and really a personality of John Harkes's level is great for Division 3. So I think everyone is excited. And by the way, Greenville interviewed 20 possibilities. So they ended up with their #1 choice, and I think that's great for the franchise.
All right, it wouldn't be American soccer if we didn't have a complication in the lower divisions. And the complication in D3 is that it's not just USL who's trying to fill that void, but NISA, the National Independent Soccer Association, the brainchild of Peter Wilt, who is no longer attached. I guess we'll come to that too, won't we?
Such a complicated situation, Jason. It really is, when you sit down and you and I do this, but when we really try to summarize these things, it is crazy to summarize the history of all of this, because there are no straight lines. There are lines that go kind of like this. Yeah, NISA. Brainchild, as you said, of Peter Wilt, who is now with the USL D3 club, Madison, Wisconsin. Also,
Forward Madison. Sorry, that's
right.
what I'm going for.
I love it. NISA is an interesting one. They have gone up and down in terms of the likelihood of them succeeding. At one point, when I first reported on them, I gave them a higher chance of success than USLD3. In fact, it was on your show on Sirius that I talked about this, Jason, because at the time, the plan for NISA was to launch in 2018, which would have been a whole year ahead of USLD3. And I thought that would give them an advantage over USLD3. As things stand, USLD3 has kind of been in the rabbit and the hare story, been the little, wait, that's not the red, I always get my analogies wrong. The hare,
it's okay.
You know what I mean?
The tortoise and the hare.
The tortoise and the hare, that's what it is. It comes with being a
They raced out in front,
yeah, exactly.
But it obviously hasn't worked out for them. And now the tortoise that was USLD3 has caught up and passed NISA's hare. Excuse me. Let me get it right for you. All right, there it is.
You nailed it, Jason. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, so it's one of those things that now we can say with some confidence that USLD3 will be a Division 3 team, sorry, Division 3 league in 2019. We cannot say that with that same confidence for NISA. NISA is planning to apply for sanctioning by this Friday is their deadline. They were given an extended deadline because of specific circumstances. And they, best to my knowledge, it's still up in the air if they'll be able to get those 8 teams together. So as things stand, NISA's situation is still equivocal, and there are rightly questions to be asked about why they ended up in the situation they're in.
NISA's plan from the beginning, one of the elements that Peter Wilt wanted to incorporate there was promotion and relegation, and obviously this is the this is the prize that every lower division league is trying to figure out: how to create a promotion and relegation system that allows for opportunity, open leagues, and et cetera and so forth. NISA was meant to kind of be the seed in the ground to grow into that. When NASL went on hiatus and obviously lost their sanctioning, it caused a problem for NISA, who was planning, at least in the original concept, to partner with NASL to perhaps allow for that pro-rel at some point. I just think that's an important element here to mention, Nipun.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. NISA, initially, as you said, one of its pillars was the idea of promotion relegation. They wanted to build out NISA 1 and NISA 2 and have promotion relegation, including NASL at the top and NPSL at the bottom, and all the movement across that. However, as things stand with NASL, as you pointed out, currently on hiatus, and we'll come to NPSL's plans in a second, NISA is an insular entity. And I think the idea of promotion relegation is far from something they can bring into
easily
existence.
Incorporate.
Exactly,
yeah.
Given that they'll need a massive amount of teams to make that happen. So I think that takes a back burner for NISA for now. Just coming into existence is their priority.
NISA's appeal for some of the owners of clubs in the lower divisions in the U.S. is that it is meant to be independent, that it's distinct from the USL structure, which can be very centralized. Obviously, there's some distaste for USL's partnership with Major League Soccer, which is closed. All of these elements, again, all of these complications, just things to think about as to how these leagues interact with one another or choose not to. All right, let's go down to D4, which does not exist. I mean, this is a concept. This is not even a... There is a sanctioning level for D1, D2, and D3 per U.S. Soccer. There is no sanctioning level for D4. That doesn't mean U.S. Soccer won't have something to say about this league that we're about to talk about, but it does mean that there's sort of a free-for-all at this level.
Yeah, it really is the wild, wild west. For my nerd friends, it's the phylum Protista of American soccer. It's where everything exists and nothing exists. That's what NPSL is, and that's what Division 4 is, because as you pointed out, no Division 4 exists, but there are, if we were to look at the mass of even fans and clubs, it's all at this unsanctioned level, because there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clubs and leagues that you've never heard of, and you probably rightfully will never hear of them. So there is a massive amount of soccer going on that is beyond the cognition of Division 1, Division 2, Division 3.
So that brings us to, and just to kind of lay this out, there's UPSL, which is... why don't you give a thumbnail sketch? Because I'm always confused about exactly what UPSL is or what they intend to be.
It's a good question. It's a question that many of us ask. What exactly is UPSL? Currently, UPSL is one of the only leagues to celebrate promotion relegation. They are a heterogeneous league that has many branches in many different states. They are constantly expanding, and when I mean constantly, I don't mean a club every 3-4 months. I mean a club every week. We hear a new expansion team in UPSL every week.
Well, let's be clear, because what they're doing is adding existing clubs who are just not part of the USL structure yet. But when you say expansion, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a fee to be paid or that they're...
It's a very nominal fee, especially compared to the other leagues. So compared to NPSL or PDL, definitely compared to the pro leagues, it is very nominal, and that attracts a lot of clubs. And to your point, Jason, it also leads to instability. That's why UPSL teams kind of disappear as well, because it's a brainchild of a guy who woke up one morning and said, "This is what I want to do." And this is not true for all the teams, but sometimes he can literally just pay whatever I think it's like $2,000 or $3,000 is the expansion fee. I don't remember exactly, but it's low, and a person can bring a league into existence, play for a week or play for a month, and realize he or she can't keep up with it, and the team's gone. So that's UPSL. It's unstable.
UPSL needs a whole show. It's the Wild West, as you said. We're gonna just put that to the side. We'll move UPSL over here. We'll talk NPSL now. By the way, both of these leagues sanctioned by the USASA, which is the United States Adult Soccer Association, not directly sanctioned by US Soccer. We've already said that. But this means that they are nominally amateur, although the NPSL, which we're about to talk about, can work in some money here or there. Let's talk NPSL.
Yeah, NPSL, again, a successful amateur league. There's a lot of infighting in the league, but a league that is spread across the country, many different conferences. Some involve very little travel within a 100-mile radius, and some involve much larger variations of travel, especially in the central conferences. It is a league that plays in the summer, plays mostly short season, exactly. It plays mostly with college level players who have the summer off and are looking for soccer to play. It is a league that supports its teams. So one of the things I like about NPSL, Jason, that even pro teams like pro leagues like USL, NISA, NASL, USL D3 haven't done, is that they pay for a portion or entirety of the fee for travel for playoffs, which is something that does help the owner. So NPSL is a league that has a lot of merits. On the other side of it, it's also unstable, and it also has lost many a team to other amateur leagues.
I'll throw in here that in my experience, and there are some famous NPSL teams that people may have heard of. Detroit City FC is certainly one of them. Chattanooga FC, who we may throw out here in a second, is a different one. That league is sort of marked by some of the teams being ambitious, the way that Detroit City FC is, and wanting to get fans in the door and create fan bases, and some of them being only concerned about development and literally not putting anything into marketing or branding. So you've got a disconnect there with some of those NPSL teams. And as you said, it's a short summer league. It's mostly college kids, and that leads to that situation. Now, that sets us up to talk about the NPSL's ambitions in certain areas. Certain teams, among them Detroit City perhaps, among them maybe Chattanooga, certainly the New York Cosmos B and Miami FC B teams that were once upon a time NPSL clubs that have now, with that unsanctioned situation with that league, have entered teams into NPSL. They may have new ambitions. Where are we with the idea of NPSL doing something a little different with those ambitious clubs?
So what you're leading me to, Jason, very, very gently, is NPSL Pro, as it is called currently, although the name will probably change. They met last week in New York City, a core of teams, between 7 and 10 teams, depending on whose report you're reading. As you named some of them: Miami FC, New York Cosmos B, Chattanooga, Detroit. The other 3 teams that are the core are Virginia Beach FC. I'm forgetting Jacksonville Armada, and I'm blanking on the 7th team right now. But it's another NPSL team that was that signed a LOI, a letter of intent, to join NASL about a year ago. So we have New Orleans Jesters is that 7th team.
There you go.
Yeah. So, and there are other teams that are interested. Boca Raton FC, Miami United FC are teams that we know are interested in this plan. So Multiple teams have discussed this. The idea is to play a full season, and the idea is to make sure that revenue comes in to make these clubs sustainable, and more importantly, to prevent losing clubs to other leagues. And that's a very important goal for NPSL Pro, because those owners realize that with the expected success of USL D3 coming into markets like Chattanooga, if they don't have more dates to play soccer, and if they don't go pro and pay their players and act like a professional unit, they will lose this battle to USL. And let's be clear, it is a battle.
Now, NPSL or NPSL Pro, or another name that part of the reason that we talk about a name change is because there is some word on the street that U.S. Soccer might not like NPSL Pro calling themselves professional if they're not sanctioned in one of those top 3 divisions as we described. So they may decide to go in a different direction, but that means that they are not intending to try to be sanctioned by U.S. Soccer as one of those top 3 divisions. They are actually, and in sort of a de facto way, Nipun, trying to create a Division 4.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They're trying to do their own thing. One of the common things you hear from people who maybe are not as complimentary or understanding of the troubles at lower division soccer is to build, quote, build a better mousetrap. What that really means is building an alternative pyramid, really, is what that means. Living outside the current constraints of U.S. soccer. And that is what NPSL Pro is trying to do. Whether or not they'll be successful is anyone's guess, but I admire the tenacity and I admire the vision. And one of the things I've been told by people at this meeting is that they've talked about a 5-year vision and a 10-year vision, something NPSL has never done before. Should there be skepticism? 100%. But hopefully we are seeing the start of something new.
All right, so that's the overview from all the way at the top with Major League Soccer down to what could be something with NPSL Pro. Nipun Chopra, Lower League America. That's a good way to start this, Nipun. We'll certainly be back. We'll dive into USL and D3 a little bit more. We'll certainly talk about some of the news of the day, sprinkle that in, including the Chattanooga situation. I think we need to come back to that one.
By the way, Jason, I should add that there is one more league that we're forgetting. It's PDL. It's the Premier Development League. It's aligned with USL, and it is also currently unsanctioned because of their unhappiness at the new USASA tiers that were launched at the end of last year. So that's another important league, the PDL, and it is an amateur unsanctioned league.
All right, definitely worth mentioning, PDL. Can't forget that. If you forget anybody, we'll get emails. That's probably what's going to happen. Nipun Chopra, make sure you subscribe. We're going to be doing Lower League America hopefully every week here on Compass Football. For Nipun Chopra, I'm Jason Davis. Thank you for watching.